Hey there, fellow gardener. Let's talk about something that doesn't get nearly enough attention in the gardening world: humus. No, not the chickpea dip you're thinking about, though I love that too. I'm talking about the dark, crumbly, almost magical substance that transforms ordinary dirt into living, breathing soil. This is the stuff that separates gardens that merely survive from gardens that absolutely thrive. And today, I'm going to show you exactly how to build it in your own backyard. Here's the thing: most gardening guides won't tell you straight up. Humus isn't compost, and it isn't just decomposed organic matter, it's something far more remarkable. Humus is the final, stable form of organic decomposition, a complex collection of organic compounds that have been so thoroughly broken down by soil microorganisms that they've become almost permanent fixtures in your soil structure. Think of it as the end game of decomposition, the black gold that remains after everything else is broken down, as far as it can go. When I first started gardening seriously about 15 years ago, I thought adding compost was enough. I'd dump some half-finished compost on my beds, pat myself on the back, and wonder why my neighbor's tomatoes always outperformed mine. The difference, I eventually learned, was humus content. Her soil was rich with it, while mine was still building toward it. Humus doesn't just feed your plants, it transforms the entire soil ecosystem, creating a resilient growing environment that can handle whatever challenges come its way. The benefits are honestly staggering. Humus can hold up to 90% of its weight in water, which means your soil stays consistently moist without becoming waterlogged. It creates stable soil aggregates that resist compaction and erosion. It acts as a slow-release nutrient reservoir, holding on to minerals and releasing them exactly when your plants need them. And perhaps most importantly, it provides the perfect habitat for billions of beneficial microorganisms that form the foundation of soil health. Creating humus isn't quick, and that's actually part of its beauty. While compost can be ready in a few months, true humus formation takes years. But, don't let that discourage you. The process starts immediately, and you'll see improvements in your soil long before full humus maturity. Understanding this timeline helps you appreciate what's happening beneath your feet and adjust your expectations accordingly. The journey from fresh organic matter to stable humus happens in stages. First, the easily decomposed materials, fresh leaves, grass clippings, kitchen scraps, break down relatively quickly through the work of bacteria, fungi, and larger decomposers like earthworms. This is your standard composting process, and it creates what we call active organic matter. This stuff is valuable, feeding your plants and soil life immediately, but it's still changing, still breaking down. As decomposition continues, the remaining materials become increasingly resistant to further breakdown. Complex compounds like lignins, waxes, and proteins undergo chemical transformations, binding with clay particles and forming stable molecular structures. This is where the magic happens. Soil organisms, particularly fungi, create new compounds that didn't exist in the original materials. These humic substances, humic acid, fulvic acid, and humin, are incredibly stable and can persist in soil for hundreds or even thousands of years. The secret to building humus-rich soil lies in consistently adding the right materials in the right proportions. I've learned through both success and failure that diversity is absolutely key. You can't just add one type of organic matter and expect stellar results. Your soil needs variety, just like you need a varied diet to stay healthy. Start with a solid base of carbon-rich brown materials. Dried leaves are gardening gold. I literally cannot stress this enough. Every fall, I collect as many leaves as I possibly can from my own trees and, shamelessly from my neighbors' curbs too. These leaves, when layered into beds or added to compost, provide the carbon backbone that eventually becomes humus. Straw and wood chips work beautifully as well, though wood chips take significantly longer to break down fully. But carbon alone won't cut it. You need nitrogen-rich green materials to feed the microbial workforce doing all this decomposition. Grass clippings, kitchen vegetable scraps, coffee grounds, and fresh plant trimmings all fall into this category. The classic composting ratio of roughly 30 parts carbon to 1 part nitrogen by weight creates optimal conditions for decomposition. In practice, this looks like layering those autumn leaves with generous amounts of kitchen scraps and garden waste throughout the growing season. Here's where most gardeners miss an opportunity. Don't forget about animal manures. Well-aged manure from herbivores, chickens, rabbits, horses, cows, accelerates humus formation dramatically. The key word here is aged or composted. Fresh manure can burn plants and introduce pathogens, but after proper composting it becomes an absolute powerhouse for soil building. I keep a dedicated manure composting area that ages for at least 6 months before touching my garden beds. Now, let's get into the nuts and bolts of actually building this stuff in your garden. My favorite method, hands down, is sheet mulching, also called lasagna gardening. This technique mimics forest floor conditions where humus naturally accumulates, and it works whether you're starting a new bed or rejuvenating an existing one. The process is straightforward but requires commitment. Lay down cardboard or several layers of newspaper directly over your soil or even over grass you want to eliminate. Wet everything thoroughly. Then start layering. 4 to 6 inches of carbon-rich materials like leaves or straw, then 2 to 3 inches of nitrogen-rich materials like compost or grass clippings. Repeat these layers until you've built up at least 12 to 18 inches of material. Top it all off with a few inches of finished compost or topsoil. This creates perfect conditions for decomposition, and the organisms will move in immediately to start the transformation process. The beauty of this method is that you can plant into it right away using transplants. Simply pull back the mulch, plant into the compost layer, and let the roots grow down into the decomposing materials below. As the seasons pass, those distinct layers will disappear, worked into the soil by earthworms and microorganisms, leaving behind that precious humus. Another approach I use extensively is trench composting directly in growing beds during the off-season. After the fall harvest, I dig trenches about 12 inches deep between where next year's rows will be, fill them with kitchen scraps and garden waste, and cover them back up with soil. By spring planting time, everything has broken down significantly, and the area is ready for planting. This delivers organic matter directly into the root zone where it can begin its transformation into humus. Temperature, moisture, and oxygen all play critical roles in humus development, and understanding these factors helps you optimize the process. Soil organisms work fastest when soil temperatures are between 60 and 80 degrees Fahrenheit. This is why decomposition slows dramatically in winter and why you see such explosive growth in spring when everything wakes up. Moisture is equally crucial. Your soil should feel like a wrung-out sponge, moist but not saturated. Too dry and microbial activity grinds to a halt. Too wet, and you create anaerobic conditions that produce smelly, slimy decomposition instead of sweet-smelling humus. I check moisture by squeezing a handful of soil. If a few drops of water appear but the soil doesn't run through my fingers, that's perfect. Aeration deserves special attention because honestly, compacted soil dramatically slows humus formation. Beneficial aerobic organisms really need oxygen to do their work. This is where, the no-till philosophy really shines. Instead of turning soil over with a spade or tiller, which actually destroys fungal networks and soil structure, I just add organic matter on top and let soil life incorporate it naturally. The only disturbance my established beds receive is a gentle fluff with a broad fork once or maybe twice a year, just to create aeration channels without destroying the soil ecosystem. Once you've started building humus in your soil, protection becomes paramount. Humus can be lost through erosion, excessive tillage, or even failure to maintain organic matter inputs. Think of your humus building efforts as a long-term investment that really requires regular deposits to maintain and grow. Never leave soil bare. This is probably the single most important principle I've learned in my gardening journey. Bare soil erodes, loses moisture, experiences temperature extremes, and suffers UV damage that actually breaks down humus. Keep your beds covered with living plants, cover, crops, or mulch at all times. During the growing season, plant densely and use succession planting to eliminate gaps. In fall and winter, sow cover crops like winter rye, crimson clover, or hairy vetch that protect the soil and add organic matter when you cut them down in spring. It's important to continue adding organic matter every single year. Humus doesn't build itself indefinitely. You need to keep feeding the system. Personally, I aim to add at least 2 to 4 inches of compost or other organic materials to my beds annually. Now this might sound like a lot, but remember that much of it will decompose and compact down. so just think of it as feeding your soil's living workforce so they can continue creating humus for you. Building truly humus-rich soil takes time, and I want to be honest about that. In my own garden, it took about 3 to 4 years of consistent organic matter addition before I really noticed the transformation. That moment when I dug into the soil and found dark, crumbly earth, full of earthworms, instead of the heavy clay I'd started with. But here's the encouraging part. Improvements begin immediately, and they compound over time. That first year, you'll notice better water retention and honestly, easier cultivation. By year 2, plant vigor increases noticeably, year 3 brings improved pest and disease resistance, and by year 4 or 5, you'll have soil that grows incredible plants, almost effortlessly. Soil that bounces back from stress. Soil that other gardeners envy when they visit your garden. This is the journey I'm on with you. Building humus isn't a one-time project, it's a gardening philosophy, a commitment to working with nature's processes rather than against them. Every fallen leaf you collect, every kitchen scrap you compost, every cover crop you plant is an investment in your soil's future. And that future is honestly incredibly bright. So, start today. Pick one technique from this article and implement it in your garden. Your soil and your future harvests will thank you. If you found this helpful, subscribe to the Soil House for more in-depth gardening wisdom and share this with a fellow gardener who's ready to transform their soil. Let's build better gardens together, one layer of organic matter at a time.